fell asleep through some of the important bits, but take that with a grain of salt as you listen to my review. Hello and welcome back. Hello and welcome back to Bang Bang Book Reviews. My name is Dawn, and today we are going to be discussing Water Moon by, you would have thought I would have had this prepared, Samantha, Sotto, Yambao. Prepared? What does that mean? I don't know. Water Moon is about a mythical ramen shop. And if you walk into this establishment and you see a ramen shop, well, then you just eat your ramen and go about your day. But if you see a pawn shop, then that means something else. Hannah and her father are the proprietors of this pawn shop, and one day her father gets taken or is missing or is murdered. Hannah doesn't know, and her and another young man named Kai go to find him. I had really high hopes for this book. I thought this was going to be a 5-star and I was just going to rave and love it and everything, and no. I'm going to give it a 3.5, probably a 3.25. I probably should do a 3.25, but I'll up it to a 3.5 and be just sitting in my disappointment. But it has such potential. Like, this book could have been great, but I hate this. This is what happens when you get a library book. Use your library, but this happens when you do. See my ring light? So as always, we're going to start with dislikes, and then we're going to go to likes, and then some nitpicks. And if I have some spoilers, I will do a spoiler edition at the end, but all of this stuff in the beginning is spoiler free, so don't worry about it. Okay, let's get started with our dislikes. This is set in Tokyo. No, it's not. It's set in Japan. I don't know where I got Tokyo from. I don't think so. It's set in Japan, and it's a incredibly imaginative Japan. Like, the magic in here is things I have never read before, and it was beautiful. I don't know how much she made up versus how much is Japanese folklore. I don't care. It was all beautiful and visual and vibey and aesthetic, and if you love that type of writing, then you're going to love this. Well, that type of imagery, maybe not the writing. So Hannah lives not in the real world. She lives in an imaginative world, but it's full of dreams and paper cranes and moons and water and all kinds of stuff, which is really cool. But it seemed like the author thought up all of these magical spots because they're being, I guess I was very clear in my description. So Hannah and her friend Kai are trying to find her father. They are being chased by these bad people, and they have to kind of like get information and stop at different places to get information. And all these places are full of like stalls and, you know, all these locations that are just full of magic. And it felt like the author sat down at her desk and was like, okay, how many different types of magic can I come up with and string them all together, but then have no story connecting them? And that's what I felt like I was reading. A whole bunch of cool magic with no story to connect everything, which is unfortunate. This book has several major themes, being fate and like choice. Choice is the biggest theme here. But the author doesn't really have anything new to say about choice, unfortunately. It's all stuff we've heard before, just kind of wrapped up in this pretty package of her world. This seems like it should be a lit fic book, and I kept waiting for some profoundness because the writing is trying to be deep and profound, but the actual substance isn't. And I like a thinker, you know, I like to be challenged when I read books. I don't just read books for vibes and aesthetics. I want to be challenged. I want to learn something. I want to be inspired. And this seemed like it was setting up to inspire me, but it didn't happen. All of the characters were flat. Hannah was a bit of a Mary Sue. I hate to say it, but this girl, she cannot visit the outside world. So she's kind of, and not to be rude or anything, but she's kind of homeschooled. And you know, this perception of homeschoolers is that they don't have many social skills. They're just kind of like in their own little world a little bit. And that's kind of the way Hannah was written. She was just kind of homely. You know, she didn't really have any hobbies. She's kind of stuck here. She don't want to be here. Her daddy's making her. And that does not lead to much of a personality, which she did not have. However, everybody was in love with her. Like, it was a love triangle. And I'm like, what is so special about this girl? Besides the world that she lives in, she's not that special. Kay is the guy who is traveling with her, and he is a physicist. And the only reason why I knew that, well, he kind of said he was a scientist, but he mentioned the word neutrino, and I know that word because I watched Young Sheldon. Otherwise, I would have been like, what the fuck is a neutrino? But he was a physicist, but his profession had no impact on the story whatsoever. He could have been an engineer, and I'm going off of, you know, Big Bang Theory. He could have been a geologist. He could have been a neurosurgeon. Like, he could have been anything. It really, I think maybe twice he connected neutrinos to the world here. The cool thing about him, the only cool thing about him, is that he is a scientist, so he sees things very black and white, whereas Hannah lives in this magical, mythical world, and she sees things very gray. That's the only cool thing about him. He is post-grad student. He is a professional man. Like, he has a job. He's a scientist. So he's at least 25. Yet him and Hannah felt very young. Like, the way they behaved, I had to remember that this is not YA. They didn't really act like an adult would. Speaking of Kai, I don't want to call him Kai because it's spelled K-E-I, that's why. Speaking of Kay and Hannah, there is a bit of an insta-love here. I wasn't feeling the romance at all. And like I said, the moment she opened the door and he spoke to her for 5 minutes, he was in love with her. That's called a Mary Sue, folks. She's not special. There was nothing special about her to fall in love with. They had something in common. Both of them kind of lost their mother. Her mother was killed because of something that she did. Hannah's mother was killed, and Kay's mother left him when he was a young boy. So they have that in common, but I wasn't really buying the romance here. It was whatever. If it did not have a romance, it would not have impacted the story at all. She could have left it out. Kind of wish she had, though. Didn't really need it. I didn't like the writing style. It's like, you gave this book a 3.5 and you are still talking about all of your dislikes. Yes. I didn't like the writing style. Like, it wasn't horrible. Like I said, the imagery here was fabulous. My problem was that it was her writing style is a little try hard. As I said earlier, she's trying really hard to be profound, and every once in a while she'll throw in these lines like, yesterday has no doors. What the hell does that mean? I don't know what that means. And it was peppered like that throughout the text, and the conversation, the dialogue here would just be, the way they spoke to each other, you'd be like, nobody talks like that. People don't talk like that. And if you are a litfic reader, you're like, oh, well, here we go. Here is where she is going to drop some knowledge on my ass. And where's the knowledge? It was very clunky. It kind of slowed down the story. It's like, okay, let's go. I don't want to hear you talking. Let's move on here. Let's pick up the pace. So as I said before, they're being chased by these things. I don't know what they're called. I was kind of visualizing them as, what are those things from Harry Potter? Dementors. I was picturing Dementors. And they are chasing our couple here throughout the entire story. But it never felt urgent. They're just like, oh, derp, derp, let's get in this boat. Derp, 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 let's fly on this cloud. Like, it was not like, oh my God, we gotta hurry up because the Dementors are following us. No. And I don't know if this is supposed to be cozy or if this is supposed to be like, you know, like, oh my God, we gotta go. We're on a deadline here. We're gonna get killed, you know. I don't know. It felt cozy to me. I don't like cozy. Those are all of my dislikes. I don't have any nitpicks. So let's just move on to likes. And I really only had one like, and that was her world. Like I said, I could see her sitting down at her desk and it's like, how many different ways can they get from point A to point B? We're going to jump through a pond and we're going to come in through the other end. And now we're going to go through a field of daisies, and one of the daisies is going to swallow us up. And then we're going to do some origami, and the origami is going to fold over, and the two locations are going to touch and they're going to meet, and then we're going to travel to that location. Like, she has all of these ideas, and I thought all of them were really cool and interesting. I have never read most of them before. Some of them I have. So, like, I am one of those people, when I read a book, I visualize, I see a movie. A lot of people don't, but I see a movie. And my movie kind of resembled the cover, like in blues and kind of pastel watercolor, because they do a lot of watercoloring here. So the visualization of the story as I was reading was beautiful. Like, the story that I conjured up in my mind was beautiful, and I enjoyed it. And that's all that I liked about this book. I like the interaction, or the I like that you can take the cover, like, this is a library book, so I can't, but if you buy the book, you can if you buy the book, you can turn the book into some origami. I like that. I think that's really cool. The cover is beautiful. But yeah, that's pretty much the only thing I liked about it, even though I gave it a 3.5. Because that was such a big part of the book, I rated it higher than like a 3 or a 3.25. I'm not sure. I don't know what I'm going to give it. Maybe I'll give it a 3.3 and call it even. I don't know if I want to do spoilers because, like I said in the intro, I ironically kind of like fell asleep through like major plot reveals. I would wake up and I'd be like, what happened? And then I'd be like, do I rewind it and go back? I don't care enough to do that. Like, there was a moment when we find out what happened to her mom, and then, well, I didn't find out because I fell asleep, and I did not care to go back and find out. So, there were several moments that happened. So I can't do a spoiler because I fell asleep to all the spoilers. But that has been my review of Water Moon by Samantha, Sotto, Yambao. Like I said, if you like a vibey, aesthetic book, you will probably love this. If you don't really care too much about plot or character development, and there are a lot of people who don't, they read books for vibes. Maybe not on here, more so on Book Talk, but whatever. If that's you, then I highly recommend it. Thanks for joining me, and I will catch you in the next review.